and last year I interned at NYU's Fine Art Department of Psychology. And my project, the title of my project is PEARL, which stands for Parents Enhancing Academic Readiness Through Lessons and Strengths. And last year I worked with 4 individuals, 3 other individuals, but unfortunately they're not in a program this year, but I'm still here. And because they went off to college and whatnot. And my mentor was Dr. Chrissy McQueen. Okay, so what is PEARL? Hold on. Okay, this project explores what historic parents raising children in low-income areas think about positive parenting. So what we're trying to do is to document the tendencies and what parents in low-income areas think about positive parenting. And through this project, we learned about parents' goals, beliefs, and values, parents' goals for their children, and what parents do with their children to achieve those goals. Okay, so background research. In the 1960s, a famous parenting researcher, Diana Brown, introduced a study that identified what type of parenting existed. So the first was authoritarian parenting. And basically, an authoritarian parent is a parent that's very strict, and it consists of high levels of restrictive, punitive, and rejecting, and power assertive behaviors. And an authoritative parent is a parent that's more in the middle. The parent is nurturing, involvement, and sensitivity, reasoning, and control. And last is a permissive parent. And a permissive parent has a high level of warmth and acceptance, but low level of involvement and control. So they're basically one of those parents who are like very permissive, and they allow the children to have a lot of flexibility. But an authoritative parent is more in the middle of being an authoritarian and being a permissive parent. So the purpose. What is the purpose of my project and why is it important? Well, most of the research that has been done about parenting has been done in white, middle-class communities. So how does this information reflect the rest of society and how we should conduct our parenting methods? This is why my research is important, because we are going into low-income communities, which many researchers have not done before, and documenting the tendencies of parenting within those areas. So in order for research to be relevant for people in diverse backgrounds, cultural differences must be explored. And the PEARL project aims to document the many strengths and parenting skills of African American parents. So basically, for our project, we're mainly focusing on African American parents because we have to take the project one step at a time. And we're trying to document the positive parenting methods in Black communities, and we learn more about these influences in school readiness in the children. So the methodology. So we use Black parents, which includes African American parents, Caribbean parents, and parents from Africa. And the parents that were involved in the study were of low socioeconomic status. And the caregivers the parents were from age 21 to 50, so we had a diverse age group. And the children that they had were from ages 3 to 5, because Head Start is a daycare center that basically tends to early childhood, and we focus our research in the area of Brooklyn, Queens, and Manhattan. It doesn't represent the whole New York City, but we're taking our research, like I said, one step at a time, so therefore we have to explore each borough at a time. And we comprise 34 interviews and 10 focus groups. So we interviewed interview sessions. It's not like we interviewed only 34 people, it's just that every time we went to a site, we count that one. And 10 focus groups, as in which we interviewed a group of parents in a session together. And also to have the parents complete our surveys and go through our interviews, we actually offered them a $50 Target gift card, because nowadays you have to offer some people an incentive in order to participate in your study. And the procedure. First, we created a partnership with the Head Start Community Center, because a lot of times, a lot of organizations are they're not very welcoming to researchers, because a lot of time researchers will come into facilities and write a lot of bad, negative feedback about that facility. So a lot of Head Starts, especially in the 80s and 90s, a lot of researchers would come there for one day and write a lot of negative feedback and give it to other organizations saying how Head Start isn't a good program. So we had to gain the organization's trust in order for them to let us conduct our research and to say that we're only looking for positive aspects. And we listened to the parents who interviewed in the discussion groups, and some of the questions that we asked were, what are you most concerned about as a parent? We want to know what the concerns of African American parents are, and what are the goals and expectations for your child in the preschool years. We want to know what are these parents looking for in their child's readiness, and are there particular things that Black parents do that you think of as good or effective ways of parenting. So we want to see what they see as effective parenting. And the data from the interviews and discussion groups were videotaped, recorded, and transcribed. So not only will we have to videotape the sessions and record them, but when we got back to the lab, we had to transcribe every single word for verbatim that they said. So even if they paused or sighed or did any kind of voice tendency, we had to document it with certain codes to indicate that. So basically, since I worked with 4 people, we split up into 2 groups, and basically the question is in blue is the question that I focused on. My other 2 group members, they focused on how do social and economic challenges affect parenting in low-income urban Black Americans, and they hypothesized that they face obstacles that require them to utilize the available resources and overcome such challenges. And a lot of these factors within the community it's a good hypothesis because a lot of the factors within the community can hinder your flexibility of being a certain type of parent, because you might not be able to afford certain things for your children, or the community might not offer that much for you to do and activities to do with your children. And the project that me and my group member focused on was how do parenting methods between African Americans and Caribbean immigrant, how do parenting methods differ between African American and Caribbean immigrant parents? So basically, a lot of researchers will just categorize Black or African Americans as this one big group, but they fail to realize that there's a lot of cultural differences within the Black race. So my hypothesis was that Caribbean immigrants are likely to be more strict and protective of their children. Why did I hypothesize this? Well, in my belief, I would predict that someone who just immigrated to the country would be more protective of their children because they don't want their children to fall into the wrong tendencies. They want to protect their children more. Someone who's been living here and is used to the country, they might be a little bit more lenient with their children, and they might feel more comfortable with the environment. So the results, well, basically, since this was a quantitative research project, what we did was during the interview, we looked for certain tendencies, and if it fell into any of these categories, we would document that, and these percentages are how many, the percentage of people who mentioned things that fell into the category. So the first one was parenting methods, improvement in parenting. Parents desire to have a better way of life and are willing to use new parenting methods that are relevant to their children. So 29% of the parents mentioned something that was relevant to this category, and 43% of the parents mentioned something that has to do with the discipline category, which was parents talk about strict versus permissive parenting, harsh rules, and physical discipline and communication. Because a lot of times when you have these cultural barriers with certain immigrant families or whatnot, and they try to see what is acceptable discipline, because in certain countries, they might use a more harsh way of disciplining their children than they do here, and they want to know what's more culturally acceptable in their American society rather than how they discipline their children in their home country. And 43% of the individuals mentioned the environment. Parents talk about Caribbean houses, how they have backyards and nature, as well as close relationship with their neighbors. According to them, certain parts of America remind them of the island. However, most apartments are clustered and bring disappointment. So a great amount of the Caribbean parents that we interviewed mentioned that they were disappointed with with being in America because they were in these apartments that were very clustered. They're used to their home country where let's say they lived in Jamaica and they lived on a farm and they had their own land and they had close relations with their neighbors and everyone was friendly. And then when they come to America, they live in these clustered apartments where some of the neighbors aren't as open as they are in the islands, or you can't let your children run around, let's say, barefoot, because a lot of the parents mentioned that they will let their children run around barefoot on the farm and whatnot, but you can't do that here because, that's not acceptable in our society. And surprisingly, only 14% of the parents talk about gun violence on the streets. And maybe this can be because, let's say for the immigrant families, maybe they haven't been exposed to the neighborhood long enough to know if there is any kind of violence, but it can be because maybe they're not very involved within their community. So it's like, a lot of times with immigrant families, let's say Caribbean families in which we interviewed, they tend to like have their own community within the community where they only network with like their Caribbean relatives or people that they know from their country. They tend not to really engage in the rest of the community, and they tend to shield their children from the rest of the community. And outside factors, 43% of parents mentioned freedom. Parents talk about how their children could run around barefoot, make noise, and play in the parks alone in the Caribbean islands. And this disturbed many of the parents because when they come to America, they face many limitations. As I speak about here, the parents talk about complaints from their neighbors about the noise and no freedom. And cultural identity, 29% of the parents talked about Caribbean schools, uniforms, and American restrictions. And a lot of times, some of the Caribbean parents were actually disappointed with the American schooling because in the Caribbean, they're used to the British education. And when they come here, they're pretty disappointed with the educational standards in New York City. And with the frequencies, well, the blue are the African Americans and the yellow are the Caribbean. So with the African Americans, for some reason, when it came to improving parenting, none of the parents really mentioned within their interview concerned about improving their parenting. 30% of the Caribbean parents mentioned that they would improve their parenting, and 70% of the Caribbean parents had a concern for discipline, while only 20% of the African American parents had a concern for discipline. And Caribbean parents, the reason why they mention more about the environment is because they face more of a culture shock. So it was more of a concern to them about them being disturbed in the environment than the African Americans who were used to the environment. And for some reason, when it came to violence, the Caribbean parents mentioned more about violence, and the African American parents didn't. But like I said again, it doesn't mean that they aren't exposed to violence. It can mean that they gain not a tolerance, but it's like maybe they've gotten used to the area, so they don't complain as much for the violence as the Caribbean immigrants do. And for freedom, it was basically almost the same. And the limitations, only the Caribbean parents really complain about limitations. And cultural identity, cultural identity wasn't really mentioned as much, but both the African Americans and Caribbean parents wanted to maintain their cultural identity. And for the education, 20% of the Caribbean parents mentioned a concern for education. Okay, in discussion. In our research, our findings show that Caribbean parents strongly emphasize the impact of environment and disciplinary methods on their parenting. Like most immigrant families, parents struggle to adapt to their new culture. Like I said before, because of the culture shock, they have to adapt to their new environment, and it can cause a strain on their parenting methods because they can't be as flexible. And they try to use new parenting methods that are acceptable to their new community. Also, many Caribbean parents were disappointed by the limitations in their living area. Parents struggle to help their children maintain their cultural identity. And the current findings. The transcript reveals some similarities between all Black parents. And that's all the parents wanted their children to succeed. They wanted to see their children have a better future. And traits like patience, leadership, and determination were highly valued. A lot of the parents mentioned that they wanted their children to be patient and to have strong leadership skills and determination. And religion and church also played an important role. Almost all of, well, I would say 80% of the parents that we interviewed actually had a strong value for religion and going to church. Most of them were practicing Christians within the community. And the transcript also indicate that differences exist in techniques used by African American parents, and some parents rely on physical discipline while others do not.